Right. And let me just do, I'll leave I'll leave it like that. I was gonna just set it to just a constant, light output, but it's gonna be fine. So it'll adjust as I go towards it and away and all that stuff. So that's fine. Okay, cool. Ready when you are. Yeah. Eric, what's up, man? How you doing? It's been too long, man, but it's always a pleasure. Oh, I mean, I'm really glad that you decided to start this channel. And I'm really glad that you decided to dip your toe into the firearm pond. I have a feeling you're going to take to it like a duck to water. So this is going to be interesting. Definitely. I really lament not being able to attend this year due to COVID, in 2020. But I'm really hoping, and I'm remaining positive that everything's going to turn out really well for 2022. And hopefully we can go in and kind of come in with a little bit more knowledge of firearms and just, there's something about having gone to the event once already, and then coming back and feeling a little bit more familiar with the setting and feeling a little bit more familiar with the brands that we're going to be able to sit down and talk to. I think we're going to have a lot of great opportunities if the event does happen to be able to see some really familiar brands and then some new brands, and hopefully get some of that material on your channel and get on my channel and just grow together. Oh, look at you. Yeah, at the end of the day, what you're really trying to do when you're a firearms owner is really get comfortable with your firearm. You have a lot of things you have to consider. You have to consider the drift on your sights. If maybe they need to be adjusted, you have to consider the ammo that you're firing and how accurate the ammo is. Some is obviously, better than others. When it comes out of a short barrel like the P365 or even the 365 XL. And also just your trigger discipline, how you're anticipating shots and just getting used to the recoil patterns of your firearm and being able to distinguish how the recoil pattern is with the smaller version, which is the P365 as opposed to the P365 XL. For me, I carry everything from a single stack, Glock, like the Glock 43, to something a little bit bigger, like the Glock 43X. I've carried a Glock 19, a P320 compact, even the full-size Glock 17, which in actuality was the first firearm I ever owned. So, the recoil is different on each one. And, when you're switching from one to the other, it's pretty difficult, and you can tell what the difference is between one and another. And I can tell you, with something small like the P365 or even the Glock 43, which is what I have today, it's very easy to want to anticipate, that recoil when you're going to go ahead and hit the trigger. And that's what causes a lot of people when they're shooting to shoot, say, to the left or even low and to the left, which is a fairly common problem, but it's something that, in time and with training, I think that you're going to master it fairly quickly. So you'll be good. Definitely, definitely. No, going to the range the carbon buildup inside of the barrel. It can foul up the rifling, and it can actually, screw around with the accuracy of your shot. And even if you're not, hitting the range constantly, if you do carry your gun consistently, which I believe that everybody should if they own a firearm, you're going to get a lot of gunk just from carrying that collects inside of your holster, inside of your firearm. It can get into the slide, it can get into the barrel. So even just a maintenance cleaning, it definitely helps. And a clean gun, if you clean it, and you keep it as clean as possible, it's gonna remain as functionally accurate as possible. So as long as everything else works as it should, keeping it clean is just one extra step you can make sure to ensure, at least on your end, doing your part to make sure that it's accurate in your time of need or when you're going to go to the range. So it's definitely a big step in the right direction to do that. No, that's great. And I got to tell you, the folks over at Breakthrough Clean, they're out of Miami. I was fortunate enough to meet them with you in person over at SHOT Show. Very nice set of folks. They have extremely good equipment. So whether you're running a rifle, a shotgun, a firearm, if you're a competitor and you run 3-gun competitions, you're just an enthusiast and you're going to be going to the range and carrying, or somebody in law enforcement, they have a kit that is tailored for your caliber. It's calibrated for the things that you need to do, and it's extremely reliable. So they're one of the companies that I really like working with. Plus, most importantly, all their products are made here in the USA. Um, you know, Times like these, you want to make sure that you support small business. I feel like Breakthrough Clean is, a great business to be able to go ahead and put your financing through, put your money into. And I can tell you, owning a firearm, I know that the term rabbit hole is used pretty loosely for a lot of hobbies. In the firearm community, the rabbit hole is pretty deep. And I'm sure you know about rabbit holes being that, you're an outdoorsman, you're an avid outdoorsman, and you're a knife guy. So prepare to jump headfirst into it. I myself am using some products from 2 companies. One is local to me here in Georgia, and it's called Freedom Lube. And I'm going to see if I can go ahead and get some of that. There we go. Okay. This is it says it's a universal metal lubricant and protectant. So after I've cleaned the firearm, this is usually what I use to be able to lube it and to keep it from, provide some type of corrosion resistance. It's something I also use on knives as well. So whenever I take my knives down, that sort of thing, I like to use something that's local and support small business when I can. So I love using that. And then aside from that, a lot of the tools that I'm going to be using, like the steel rod that goes into the actual barrel, and some of the items I'm going to use to be able to take some of the gunk out of the firearm are from a business called ProShot. And ProShot it was also at SHOT Show, but I had used some of their products very early on, and all of their products are made in the USA. They employ some really good quality people. I was fortunate enough to meet the owner of the company, so I'm going to be using some of their stuff. They have this stuff right here, which is, it's called One Step CLP. And basically CLP, for those that are watching, is a 3-pronged system. It's a cleaner, a lubricant, and a protectant. But most important, I'm using that more as a cleaner in this case. I'm going to be using the other one as a dedicated lubricant and protectant. So mhm. No, definitely. And I happen to use grease too, depending on the amount of activity I'm putting in my firearm. There are times where you want to be able to go ahead and reduce the wear on items that have friction, especially when you have two metal parts that are going to be used, that are, you know, constantly having contact with each other when you're firing your weapon. In this case, you know, if you are putting a lot of rounds down, you know, the range, or you're actually putting a lot of time into the use of your firearm, to be able to go ahead and extend the parts and keep them from having to be swapped out and kind of keep them from wearing prematurely, having something like a grease is really good for that. And it's exceptionally good when you're using it in warmer weather. In the colder weather, I prefer to just, you know, start using oil. Is something maybe with a little bit more viscosity, but still oil, because it's something that, you know, if you're going to go ahead and use your firearm, you can just go ahead and clean off, and then you can start from a clean slate rather quickly and then kind of get into it again. It doesn't gum up any of the internals, anything like that. But I do use both. I mean, there's great applications for both. So I'm glad you're using that. And I have used some of their stuff. In fact, I did want to bring this out. This is actually just a kit that I have put together myself, just a few items that I've gotten here and there. This is a small MOLLE bag that I picked up, you know, dirt cheap off of Amazon. And then what I do is I keep things like my Q-tips, which, you know, I use as applicators or to be able to go ahead and clean little areas that are hard to reach with, you know, your average brush. And then inside here, it's funny you mentioned Breakthrough Clean, because I use Breakthrough Clean as well, but I use their quick wipes, and their quick wipes are really good when you're out on the field. It's a dedicated CLP as well. They clean, they lubricate, and protect. I have some napkins and stuff like that, and some wipes, and I use a bore snake to be able to go ahead and get some of the gunk out of the barrel itself. I'm going to be using something very similar to that. I'm going to be using a rod to be able to go ahead and clean the inside of the barrel. But yes. Definitely. Depending on the brand that you're going to be using, and depending on the powder that's used to ignite the bullet that, you know, is exited from the barrel of your firearm, sometimes they can be a lot cleaner than others. I always like to use, brass casings, you know, in the bullets, because brass is a relatively soft metal. Number one, that can be collected and be given to somebody who can use for reloading. If you happen to reload, that's really good to use rather than stainless steel or steel, which can crack, or even aluminum, because they do use aluminum casings. And aside from that, you know, since it's soft, it's going to be softer than the barrel that it's firing through. So if you get any shavings, anything like that, it's not going to, foul up the rifling. It's not going to mess up the rifling and mess with the accuracy of the gun. So I'm glad that you're using that. I try to stay away from reloads, and I try to stay away from anything, any steel casing or even aluminum. But, in this day and age, you kind of get what you can. So I mean, as long as you know and you are conscious of what is going through your barrel, what is coming out of your firearm, and you keep it clean so that you know what's going on in there, you're not going to have a problem with accuracy. So you're doing the right thing. I do. I have my my Glock 43. As you can see, I've been carrying it a bit, so I'm going to just go ahead and unload it right now. I'm using 124 grain Federal HST rounds. This is just the standard pressure. It's not a plus P or a plus P. and then got that and pulled this to the side. Well, it's better to have and not need than the other way around, you know. So, but yes, I do have my my Glock 43. It's ready to go, and yeah, we can start whenever you're ready. Okay. Yes. Yeah. The great thing about SIGs and the great thing about Glocks is that not only are they modular, like the Glock 43 can accept the 43X frame or the 48 frame. I know that the P365 is modular and that it can accept the XL frame as well. There's not too many parts that you need to be able to go ahead and take that down. You know, you just go ahead and you use the same method to be able to go ahead and take one down than the other. And that's one thing I really enjoy about it. For something like, you know, the firearm itself, they usually take down very, very similar. So that's one thing I really like about them. So what are you going to be using? Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Okay, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's a little bit more than what most people would do for a field strip. You're going to detail strip it, which is great. It's nice to be able to do that, especially after, you know, shooting, you know, your first couple of 100 rounds, so you can see how the wear is in a lot of the parts, especially the fire control unit that you have inside of the P-Series SIG that you have. Most of the P-Series, if I'm not mistaken, so the 230, the 320, the 365, and them are able to do that, and you're able to swap that, you know, FCU in different versions. Like I believe you also have the P365 XL frame. You'd be able to use the fire control unit for the P365 in that one, and vice versa. So that's actually really cool. Okay. For solvent, I really don't recommend using a solvent. That's why I typically run a CLP. CLPs are usually a little bit milder when it comes to the solvent, because you have other things like lubricants and you have protectants to be able to keep it, you know, provide some corrosion resistance on the firearm, especially the metals. But when it comes to the polymers, you made a great choice with Breakthrough Clean, because I know for a fact that they are safe to use on every part of the firearm. There are other things that you can use that are very similar. Like I used Ballistol for quite some time. In fact, I think I have a small spritz of Ballistol that I keep in that little small pouch as well, in case I need to go ahead and just spray it down really quick and work on it, and I don't want to actually use just a small wipe. Having those wipes are great to be able to go ahead and run through the barrel itself. But, you know, just a small spray of some CLP or even some droppers and stuff like that would work great. And I'm pretty sure it's polymer friendly. So you should be good to go with that. But, you know, just be mindful if you're going to use a dedicated solvent, make sure that it's polymer safe. And I'm pretty sure that the solvent you have is good. Mm-hmm. Definitely. You know, when there is carbon buildup or, you know, copper fouling, anything like that, from taking it to the range, first thing you want to do when you strip it down is you want to be able to penetrate as much as you can into that, so that when you're going to go ahead and clean it, run your bristles and stuff through it, it's going to take as much of it out as you can. You might need a few passes, maybe not too much because yours is relatively new, but, you know, if you're somebody that goes to the range and then, runs, you know, like say 100 rounds, 200, you know, 300, however many rounds you choose, and then you choose not to clean it immediately when you get home, which I don't recommend. I recommend that you clean it when you get home. You know, it allows all of that gunk and that carbon and everything to solidify inside. So it takes a little bit to loosen it up. So, you know, it's a great thing to be able to go ahead and just kind of put a little bit of the CLP, or, you know, the dedicated solvent, into the barrel and kind of just let it marinate in there for a bit. Correct. Yeah, you always want to do to use the same direction, because what you want to do is you want to go with the rifling. So you're going to go from, if you have the barrel itself, okay, you want to go from the back forward and out. So from the base out. Definitely. All right, so once that's done, you go ahead and just kind of spread it around a little bit onto the barrel itself. Make sure it's nice and coated. Yes, yes. So when you're actually, here, let me see if I can go ahead and show that in the camera. When you can actually see the striker pin that's sticking out of my Glock 43 right there. I'm going to see if I can kind of get some, there you go. Okay, so that area, you want to keep that striker pin as dry as possible. So what I typically do is, there's a little lever here, at least for the Glock, that I pull back. And as soon as I do that, you hear a little click. And if you notice, that striker pin, well, it becomes shrouded inside of the little hole where it comes out from. Okay, so yeah, just as long as you know and you're mindful of the fact that that striker pin is there whenever you're cleaning. I usually clean face up. Okay, so anything that's dripping down is not going to drip into that little hole or that area where the striker pin is. It's going to drip anywhere else. Correct. Yes. Yeah. You just want to be mindful of that, and you want to make sure that that stays as dry as possible. I mean, you can also keep like a small, a little piece of cloth or something on top of it. I technically don't do that, because if it gets damp, then it dampens that area, and then you're going to end up having to clean it anyways. You are going to be able to just kind of, run a little bit, just a small little bit of the cloth, in that area, to be able to go ahead and clean that striker. You can do that, but typically you want to keep that as dry as possible. So I did that just to make sure that it was nice and dry. Now, what I will typically do is, and you can actually see the rails on both sides. What I typically do is I take a dab of the CLP and I just drop one on each end of the rails. Correct. Yeah, this is the CLP. So I drop it right into the rails and I just let it run down so that it gets all into the rails. Because believe it or not, gunk actually collects in there too. So. I would recommend, you might want to just kind of, if your hand is dry, or if you want to put something, dry in that area, yeah, maybe a small rag, just put it there, and then you can just spray around it. You can do both. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Run down the rails, run it down the area. Definitely. And it's not going to get it all for right now, but it's going to put a nice layer on top of that area, so that you can go ahead and get started with the rest of the firearm and just kind of like start working at it a little bit, little by little. Correct. Yeah, that's why I really like, I stand it basically on its front end. Let that little barrel shot here in the front kind of act as the stand. And then I just place a small droplet at the end of the rail, and I just let it kind of just, you know, just flow down. And it does. It goes right all the way down to the base. Now, my firearm is not going to be as dirty as yours. There's going to be a little bit here and there. But since I've been carrying it, I like to carry my stuff as clean as possible. So, yeah. No, I definitely. I have these from ProShot. You can actually cut up some nice cotton t-shirts. If you have some old t-shirts that you haven't used for a long time, you know, some white cotton t-shirts are really good to use because once you cut them into small squares, you can actually see the gunk when it's on there. If you have somebody that doesn't mind you putting stuff like that into the wash, you can wash them and you can reuse them. But typically, you know, you can get as many squares as you want. You can throw them away and just keep using old shirts. I actually use this stuff right here. It's from ProShot, and this is a 750 count. They're gun cleaning patches, and it's 100% cotton flannel. You know, they're extra absorbent. You know, it's really good, and they're about 2 1/4 inch by 2 1/4 inch. I mean, that's really all you need. Plus, they're really easy to be able to go ahead and loop in to things like this so that you can go ahead and run this through the barrel. But we'll get to that. Definitely. Of course. Those are actually some of the things that I use as well. You can purchase Q-tips pretty much at any, you know, general store. But that's great for the railings. That's great for just some areas that are a little bit harder to reach. Inside of the slide itself. And I also keep this. I noticed that you had a brush as well. I use the nylon bristle brushes. They usually have 2 sides. As you can see, there's one here and then there's this side. If you know you're on a budget, you can go to like the 99-cent store or the dollar store and pick up an old toothbrush as long as it's got some was it like a medium thickness of bristles, and it'll be good to go. So you can use that as well. And then I tend to use that when I am cleaning the inside of the firearm. It works really well in breaking out the gunk as well. So I put a couple of drops of the CLP, and I just kind of start getting to work on the inside of the firearm. Being mindful of the striker pin and the striker area. Yeah, just kind of working. Just the general area inside of the firearm, and where, you know, just slightly above the barrel. You know, if you have anywhere outside that's kind of got some gunk, you can kind of work that on too. And then you can kind of work the serrations and around the sights that you have. You know, because you use Breakthrough Clean, that is something that is not going to be corrosive to the sights. If you happen to use night sights or, you know, anything like that. I happen to run night sights off of mine. I'm pretty sure your P365 comes with night sights as well, right? Yeah, that's a really great upgrade to have on your firearm. So that's a great start. Definitely. Yeah. Unfortunately, with Glock, you get horrible night sights. I mean, you have horrible sights, but if you take it to the Glock factory, or if you send the slide to the Glock factory, they will install for a fee the Glock approved night sights, and they'll do it all themselves, and they'll send it to you. I actually went to Glock HQ in Smyrna, and I had them install them in my my Glock 17. But for these, I actually have a sight tool that I was able to go ahead and calibrate and use myself, and then I installed these. Alrighty. Oh, man. Alrighty. give me a moment. Let me go ahead and finish this little area here, and we should be good to go. It's always good to keep a nice little film, you know, of the stuff on there. You can go back later and you can dry where you feel you need to. You don't want to have it nice and wet because obviously when you're shooting, a lot of that carbon, you know, tends to build up in areas where it's expelled, and just this general area where the jacket, you know, will, the actual, not the bullet, but the casing will just pop out. That little area, you're going to see, because of the explosion that you have in your hand when you're firing your firearm, that carbon is being expelled. And so it's going to collect in this area. You know, it's going to collect a little bit higher inside here, especially here in the front as well. You're going to be able to see a lot of that buildup. So it's good to keep it nice and damp when you're working on the firearm. And then at the end, you can kind of just go over it one more time and then just get the rest of it, you know, a lot of that stuff, and just keep it as clean as possible. There we go. All right. So the slide is essentially good to go. I don't know if you have to do anything to the outside portion, but with mine. Okay, good. Now what do you want to do? You want to work on the lower, or you want to go ahead and work on the barrel? Whatever you choose. Okay, sounds good. I'll put everything to the side here. Yes, now mine is a little bit different than a T-handle. It is a, let's see here, let me just show it really quick. This is a 6.5 inch stainless steel rod that I have set up here. And what it is it has this little jig that's right here. And it'll actually come off if you don't want to use it. But the reason why I use that is because when you are working on the barrel itself, so you want to stick it in, and then as you're moving, what it does is it kind of catches here, as you can see. And this is brass, so this is not going to mess with this little area, and you're not going to create, you know, any issues. Just in case, you know, you really have to get, I know this looks funny, but yeah, as you're moving the brush inside, sometimes you really have to work it in there to be able to get some of that gunk out. And, you know, your hand can slip. I mean, it happens. Okay, depending on the amount of fouling that you have in your firearm, you can use either one. For, you know, just light preventative, you know, maintenance between, you know, trips to the range and that sort of thing. If you haven't used it that much and you're carrying it, use the nylon. It's perfectly fine. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Basically, what I like to use them for is I'll take one of these little squares, and then I end up taking the patch and I lubricate them with a little bit of CLP or just some lubricant to kind of just break down the carbon further that's inside of the barrel itself. Correct. I mean, keep in mind, you do already have some solvent inside of your barrel. So with this, what you're going to do is you're going to reintroduce a little bit more solvent, or, you know, your CLP. And what you do is you thread it through the jag like this. Correct. Okay. You can use whatever you choose to be able to go ahead and thread it through, to be able to go ahead and introduce a little bit more of the CLP, or whatever you're going to be using to clean the inside of the rifling of your barrel and the gunk. And you just kind of just slide it right in and let it come out. And then just bring it right back. In this case, you can go front to back without any issues, because of the fact that, you know, it's just this that's going through. It's not going to be marring the inside of your barrel. And because this is brass, it is not going to mess with the rifling inside of your firearm. So just kind of doing that a couple of times to make sure it either takes out some of the gunk that was in there and it reintroduces just a little bit more of whatever you're using to clean the inside of your barrel with. And you can actually take it out once it's done, and you can look at it and see if there's any carbon buildup that's already been caught. There's just a little bit, You probably can't see, but yeah, you can probably see there that there was some that was in there. Not a lot, but you know, enough for you to be able to go ahead and see just a small difference and know that whatever it is that you're using is working. So that's what I use the Jag for. And then once that's done, I go ahead and swap out the Jag for the brush itself. Install the brush. All right. Now in this case, just kind of run the brush from the base, yeah, the breech, out right out through the barrel. All right. Now, typically, I will take this off and I'll run it back. And the reason being is because, like I said, you want to keep the rifling as true as possible. So if you happen to use something like brass, the inside of your barrel is still metal. But once you've been running it for a while, you want to make sure that whatever you're using is always consistently going out one way, because you want to keep the rifling as true as possible. So it's always a good technique to do that and then take this out. That way, you know, you don't accidentally bring it back and, you know, reintroduce a new pattern of rifling in your firearm, because you want to keep them as accurate as possible. Again, with the stuff that we're using right now, it's not going to happen. I mean, I could just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, you know, with these nylon brushes, because it's preventative. It's really not going to do much to the inside of the firearm, but it's really just muscle memory and getting used to it. Kind of like when you are holding your firearm and you keep your hand off of the trigger and you're just kind of keeping it, you know, on this shelf on the side. It's really just exercising muscle memory, whether it's loaded or not. And you treat every firearm like it's loaded. You should treat every time that you're cleaning the barrel like it's, you know, like you're using something that could cause an issue later on. So definitely. So yeah, that's really good. Yeah, it's actually swiveling on ball bearings, if I'm not mistaken. Breakthrough Clean makes some really good quality stuff. And if I'm not mistaken, that handle isn't brass or steel. I think it's some like carbon fiber or even something else. Yeah, they use really high quality stuff. I really like their stuff. You can do that about 3-4 times. I mean, just keep in mind you're basically running the brush into the rifling to be able to go ahead and break down whatever has been penetrated by the CLP. So once that's done, you reintroduce the Jag. Put it on here. Not yet. No, not yet, because what you want to do is you want to see the results of the stuff that you've put in previously. So you take another one of your squares, kind of prep it into and thread it into the Jag. You'll have to excuse me. I have fat hands, so this isn't the easiest thing for me to do, but I got it. All right. And then you go ahead and you reintroduce right back into the barrel. Back out, back in, back out. Yeah. Now for me, I'm just getting some of the CLP out and the stuff in there because it was already clean, but there was some lint and stuff that was on there. So I know that it's working. And aside from that, once you start to see that the gunk is starting to disappear from your patches, and you can run as many patches as you want through your firearm until you feel it's clean enough for you. Some people just want it to be functional, and that's perfectly fine. But yeah, and you can feel free to stop there. Definitely. And you can also, you know, by eye, you can also check it to make sure that it has, you know, it looks clean on the inside. Typically what I'll do is I'll have a, you know, small flashlight or something with me, and I'll be able to go ahead and check the inside of the rifling, excuse me, of the barrel. And you can just kind of take your flashlight and kind of look in there a little bit, you know. Typically, another good thing to use for something like this there is a small, a UV bore part. It's J-shaped from ProShot that you can actually place at the end of the at the breech, excuse me, so that it faces out the muzzle. It just goes in maybe about an inch or two, and it has a small disc on it. And I apologize that I don't have one on me. It's in my flight case, and I happen to misplace it at the moment. But what you do is you shine your light on that little circular portion, and I'll see if I can put an image of the actual apparatus so you can see what I'm talking about, and it will illuminate all of the inside of the barrel so you can see if there's anything that's still gunked up, or if you can see if it's still clean. And I can tell you just from looking in with my flashlight right here that it's nice and clean. So, or at least clean enough for me to be able to say, okay, that is carry worthy, we're good to go. But if it wasn't, one thing that I really recommend getting is just some like small polymer gun tools, like some small picks. And I have some from ProShot here. They kind of look like those tools that you get from the dentist. they actually look, they're a cross between like dentist tools and lock picking sets. And you can actually go in there with these and kind of work at the little grooves that are inside to get a little bit more of the the carbon that's built up in there. But in this case, it's clean enough. I don't have any issues with that. I haven't really had any buildup like that where I've actually needed to use those tools, which is good, which means I've been maintaining my firearm good enough. So, and if you do that from the very beginning, it's going to last you a good amount of time. So. Perfect. So you can set that to the side. Sounds good.